on the national anthem of India, just been published by Rudrangshu Mukherjee.
Thank you very much. He was with me at Oxford, and we spent a lot of evenings together, but he never told me that he knew about all these things.
He's now the Dean of Ashoka University.
Yeah, he's Ashoka University. He's Chancellor.
Chancellor.
Much further than Dean. Well, thank you very much. I'm deeply grateful to my very good friend, Mr. Praveen Chakravarti, for having done many good things, including inviting me to be with you today. And that really is wonderful. As I was sitting here, when we came in and talked to some of you, and then I heard many of you give your immediate response to looking at our newly inaugurated headquarters of our party, and then the nostalgia of those of you who said 24 Akbar Road is still, we are being nostalgic about it because that's set in time and something that we've grown up with and we're accustomed to. I thought there are three things that I could speak to you about. One is something that relates directly to your being fellows, Dr. Manmohan Singh Fellows, and how different departments and different parts of our party's organization could give you opportunities. And we would be able to spend time with the professional congress to work out how this could be done. Secondly, about your reactions to this extremely modern place and how those who are not so modern react to a very modern place. And I think that's a basic an interesting idea that is evolving within the party, and I think we need to talk about this. Modernism versus tradition, and how we can keep it together, because it's important to keep it together in the reality of India of our times. And thirdly, I thought that we have to say a little bit about a subject, foreign affairs, maybe, because that's being touched, and say a little bit about foreign affairs. And some of you are lawyers, I can see they are masters in law, LLM, and PhDs, and so on. So I have some favorite, I'm a lawyer as well, but I have some favorite issues about law that I would want to touch upon. And hope to do all this within half an hour. And then take your questions, depending on what area interests you particularly. Now, firstly, there are obviously many fields in which you would be interested, perhaps in a field that you have to an extent mastered already and you have vast experience in. But you may well be interested in a field that you're not familiar with, and you're equipped, of course, in terms of intellect, you're equipped to tackle a new field. And I'm sure that my colleague here, Mr. Chakravarti, will find you a suitable slot in that field. How much time you will be able to give to that will depend on the logistics, etc., that work out. But as far as my Foreign Affairs department is concerned, it's very new. New in the sense that I'm new to the Foreign Affairs department. The department is not new, it's been there for ages. I've been in the department in the past before I got into government, and I've come back to that department. It's a very challenging time when, as you've just been told, we don't know where we are. Nobody knows where they are, except that one young lady who speaks up for President Trump. She knows everything. So whatever Levitt or something is her name, but she knows everything all the time. And of course, the rest is President Trump, nobody else. So there is a lot of challenge in terms of foreign policy, in terms of the world order. And you know, we had been positioning ourselves rightly or wrongly, I believe in objective terms rightly, because so much has gone into foreign policy over a period that we can't simply say there was nothing going for us. And certainly we can't also say that everything that's happened since we left government is wrong, although we disagree with a whole lot of decisions that this government has taken on foreign policy. We do believe fundamentally that this government has made foreign policy into a transactional affair, and therefore that should really fit in very well with President Trump, but somehow it doesn't. Their transactions are not matching. But we believed in a value-based foreign policy, a consistent foreign policy, a larger vision foreign policy that had ultimately its roots in how Gandhiji saw the world and how Gandhiji's Shagirs were inspired by his view and his vision of the world. So values were very important to foreign policy. Of course, it isn't that we were right on everything. There were things that may have gone wrong because we gave too much emphasis to value, less to pragmatism. And in the real world, pragmatism also has a role, and therefore you need to find the right balance. But that's where the challenges of foreign policy are, and I think that some of them are really, really tough challenges. The only saving grace is that the American president, particularly this one, will stay only for 4 years. So there is some hope. Perhaps next year, there will be a change as far as the Congress is concerned, and things might begin to change. But speaking of 4 years, we also have 4 years, but we don't have the same certainty of change after 4 years that the United States of America has. But the fact that you are here and the fact that the party is striving in many fields, at many levels, and in many ways, would certainly give you some sense that the party means to do something that will change things in the next 4 years, and beginning now in the next few months, and then in four years there will be a massive change, and perhaps what you pick up in the fellowship will come handy in the years to follow. So that's one part. The second part about tradition and modernity. Now, of course, there are a lot of traditional people who were involved in the making of these headquarters. But many people, when we first came here, and I'm accustomed to people in Uttar Pradesh who don't like any form of corporate structure. They are happy with cooperative structure, but not with a corporate structure. But they don't always make a difference, just as they don't make a distance between a coalition and a collision. They often say a coalition is a collision, and maybe that's how it turns out to be in practical politics. But there are many problems. There are no vote banks in Uttar Pradesh. There are bank votes. So people have bank votes, and I keep telling them, no, the banks don't vote. They vote only in high corporate matters, but they don't vote when it comes to our deciding who's to be in government. So there are people who believe that there's a very rich legacy and tradition of the past that must continue. And a lot of that is, in a sense, inefficient. When you look at it in modern organizational terms, you often think that that's inefficient. But they have a huge problem with taking that leap of faith into modernism and into efficiency and the sort of things that you expect in corporate governance, etc. So the big challenge for different levels in the Congress party, going all the way to the top, are how do we marry these two together? How do we keep modernism and tradition together? Because there are things about tradition that are extremely, extremely valuable and are extremely necessary. But there is need for change, and we have to modernize. And this is not the first generation of Congress leadership that is stamping modernism on the Congress party. Because let's not forget, it was none other than Jawaharlal Nehru who said the temples of modern India will be found where? At Bhakra Nangal. The Bhakra Nangal was to be the temple of modern India. And he, I think, it has no parallel in terms of what he believed the importance of traditional values and the importance of traditions and modernism, and how he, in his vision, conceived how modernism and traditional values will come together. So one of the things that I hope that you will have a chance to study closely and perhaps help us along is how to preserve which portion of our traditions, and how do we marry those portions of our traditions with modernism that is inevitable, and we must certainly become a very modern party. There's an evil in modernism as well, and I don't want to name the party now because I don't want to give them importance in those terms. But there is a modernism that's been injected into India. A lot of that comes through technology, a lot of that comes through whichever that university is, WhatsApp University, etc., which is evil modernism, which is modernism that you don't want to accept and to endorse at the cost of your own roots of tradition. So, but there is a modernism that you want to embrace, and there's a modernism that you want to endorse, and a modernism that you want to pursue. So this will be the big challenge for you. And there can be no better beginning than a place like this, where you would see how we should be modern, and we have to be modern, because what happens is, if you're in a political party platform and you're not modern, then you suddenly become a government overnight. And then you have to be very modern because the whole world is very modern. And how do you then react to the whole world? These are big, big, big issues that we will resolve here, and we should resolve here. The third part is your background, but of course it's been spoken about. You are not, as I understand, maybe there are one or two of you who are been associated with the Congress over a period, at arm's length maybe, but certainly associated with the Congress. There may be many of you who are inclined towards a Congress view of the world, or a liberal view of the world, let's put it like that. But you're not necessarily partisan to the Congress, you're not party political. But when people say that these are not political people, these are not people who understand politics, they're wrong, because every human being who's alive is political. Your choices, your individual choices are political choices. It's only when a party takes them as part of a mandate or a part of a manifesto that they become party political. And you may not be party political. You can have a manifesto of your own personal existence and your friends and so on. Which manifesto will tell you how to live your life in the best way. And how to live your life in the best way, or what is the things that you aspire to, is a political choice. And I'm unfortunately sad that people think that political choice is a bad choice. In many places, I have been told, oh, we don't want any politicians here. And how do you live in this country or in any democracy without politicians? And then I find, and it's difficult to say so, some of the worst non-politicians are more political than the poor politicians. They sit there in resident welfare associations. They sit in very cooperative organizations and say, no politicians here, and then sit and do nothing but politics all day. So this is something in defense of politicians. Politicians are not all bad. I mean, I think some of them that you will meet here are very, very good. And therefore, please keep that in mind, that it's one of the noblest things to be, is to be a politician. And I think you can go to times of the likes of John Kennedy and Jawaharlal Nehru, etc., to understand that the image that the politician has been given is an unfair image, perhaps earned by the politicians of the times, but certainly not something that should stick to them. Now let's come to the third part of what I wanted to share with you, and that's part of the fellowship approach, which is essentially our constitution, essentially constitutionalism, essentially about the kind of India that was conceived and nurtured and established by our forefathers, and the age of people who wrote out the Constitution, from Ambedkar to Nehru and all the freedom fighters of our times. everybody is today wanting to uphold the Constitution. So there should be no problem in this country at all. If everybody is with the Constitution, where's the problem? But the problem is that it's our Constitution versus yours, your Constitution versus ours, and we pick up the same book. Gracious Prime Minister takes the Constitution every time he gets elected and puts it to his forehead. Now, you cannot do more than that for a Constitution, at least in how you want to show your obeisance to the Constitution. Our own young leader carries the Constitution with him everywhere to remind people that this is what our fight is for. Now, it can't be that both constitutions still give us a very divided society. Why? And this is where I urge you to please spend some time, and I'm very happy to help you with this, some time on issues that instinctively a lot of modern liberal people misunderstand. And a lot of that has to do with a form of traditionalism that our Constitution preserves. Our Constitution essentially says that you have a right to live your life in the way that you please, so long as it doesn't hurt somebody else's right to live their lives as they please. And you know where the issues, in this, the issues come in about personal law, in this issues come in about worship, about the kind of food that you eat, about how you worship, etc., etc. Now, there are people who are being told that uniformity is what we need in this country. Now, we've seen many countries that have pursued uniformity, and we have been convinced by history that uniformity is not the answer, unity is the answer. And India has celebrated unity in diversity. We have never celebrated uniformity in the place of diversity. To think that uniformity will give you unity has not been established by any stretch of the imagination, that uniformity will give you unity. If we speak the same language, we will not fight. If we have the same religion, we will not fight. We don't have to go far. Just check with Pakistan whether having the same religion can lead to a fight or doesn't lead to a fight. Go to Bangladesh and ask them, why did you leave Pakistan? Go to Balochistan and ask them, why do you want to stay away from Pakistan? You all have the same religion. But how come a land based and a country based on religion can't keep itself together despite that religion? Because someone says our language is different, somebody says our culture is different, somebody says our aspirations are different, somebody says our history is different. So all those things become important in deciding what a nation and what a unified nation and a nation of unity is, etc. These are things that we need to ponder on. When I have a particular kind of diet, can somebody tell me that that's wrong? Unless I am doing something that imposes that diet on another person. So if you have a vegetarian and you insist that that vegetarian eats non-vegetarian food, you're doing something wrong. When you're a non-vegetarian and somebody insists that you eat you eat only vegetarian food, that is something that you do is wrong. But there may be special accommodation between you. You may be saying, please don't eat non-vegetarian food on a particular day, My friend is come, because if I say anything wrong, you with your experience as a police officer can immediately point it out. But welcome, please give him a hand, Mr. Alok Kumar. So I want to give you an example, because there are a lot of ladies here. I want to give you an example of a case in the Supreme Court that a lot of people believe has something to do with the wrong way of imagining our rights. And that was the case, and there are some people from Karnataka here, and that is the case that came from Karnataka, and that was the case of hijab. Girls wearing hijab to school or to college, not being permitted to wear hijab. And the matter traveled all the way to the Supreme Court. Justice Dhulia, who's now retired, was presiding in that case. And people were straining themselves and stressing themselves to prove a point that hijab is part of Islam and that it's important that Islam be respected and hijab therefore be allowed. And Justice Dhulia said simply, why are you struggling so much to prove what is in Islam, what is not in Islam? Why don't we just stick to fundamentals? And everybody stood there, flabbergasted, waiting to hear what is fundamental. And they said, a fundamental is how somebody wants to dress. Why are you going into Islam? Right? Islam may also want the same thing or may direct the same thing, but why go into the intricacies of Islam when our constitution says you have a right to choose how you want to live your life? And he mentioned, he said, if you're a Sikh, you have the 5 Ks. But that's your choice. It's religion as well as choice. If you want to wear a hijab, then you wear a hijab. It's religion maybe, but it's also your choice. It's the choice that matters, so long as your choice is not causing any disruption in anyone else's life. So if somebody feels, and he called that the veto of the heckler, if anybody feels that you're wearing a hijab or you're covering your head is creating an earth-shaking problem for him, then he becomes a dissenting heckler. They're saying, I don't want you to do this. So the real thing is, I don't want you to do this is the problem. The Constitution doesn't want you to do this is not the problem. I don't want you to do this, therefore the Constitution doesn't want you to do this is the problem. And that's why, despite the fact that both sides say that we follow the Constitution, there is one side, which is the other side, that does not follow the Constitution because the very logic of the Constitution, they do not apply in their decision making. So there are many similar questions that you will face and our party will face as we go along. Life becomes more complicated, in which you will have to step back a bit and decide what position to take. And in law, you all know that it's always been made very clear that you are free to swing your arm as much as you want, but your right to swing your arm stops where my nose begins, right? So just save my nose and swing your arm. And if you don't want, and that's why people are told, you want to smoke, please go outside. Now, there are things that vary from a system to system or an ethos to an ethos or from a civilization to civilization. Here, you're told to go and smoke in a smoking room. Abroad, I'm told, you are told go and smoke outside. No smoking rooms here, you go and smoke outside. So you see these people standing by the roadside smoking, etc. The only thing is, don't smoke in my face. That's all. And there is a very good sense in you're not smoking in my face because I become a passive smoker. And I don't want to become a passive smoker, and that's my choice again. So ultimately, it's the choice that really matters. And we are here to celebrate a liberal system in which choice, so long as it doesn't interfere with somebody else's choice, is a choice that you can freely exercise. There's a constitutional element of reasonableness, proportionality, etc. But those are fine-tuning of a basic idea, which is the basic idea of choice. Now, there are many, many, many things that you may be interested in. You may be interested in the issue of uniform civil code, for instance, issue of fundamental rights of women in various systems, and so on and so forth. I think there are answers to all of them. If you are honest about getting to an answer, you will find the answer. They're available. And if the answer is not easily available, we can spend time talking about how to get to the right answer. The important thing is talk, dialogue. Just be able to try to communicate, and some solution will emerge, because that's the basis of our society, that's the basis of our civilization, and that's the basis of our constitution. So thank you very much. I'm happy to answer your questions in a minute.
Hello, sir.
Yep, sure.
Uh, so I'm a lawyer just like you, and I'm happy I get to cross roads with you the second time. The first time was this 2015 LCIA before Justice Hoffman. You were the expert witness on policy. So my question to you is, which is the biggest blunder today that we have in foreign policy as per you in last 10 years? So that's...
Well, I'm a bit old-fashioned in this, but I believe, despite a lot of people saying that NAM has lost its relevance, I think the idea of NAM has not lost its relevance. The application of NAM may have to be changed somewhat. What was NAM? NAM was about of being independent of any groups that were dominating foreign policy. Today, even those who run down NAM are saying that we must subscribe to multipolarity, and India must play a role in that in a new world order. So multipolarity is because emergence of a lot of important states today, more powerful than they were 50 years ago, has happened. But I think conceptually it is not, and fundamentally it's not different from NAM, right? So to be part of NAM maybe today is not possible because Egypt is not what it was, Czechoslovakia has broken up, India has changed enormously, etc., etc. But the basic idea, the concept still remains the same, is that if you believe that you be free and autonomous in your decision making, which is good for yourself and good for the community that you associate with. So if we continue to associate ourselves with the global south, then whatever decisions we must take must keep the global south in mind. Do we do that today? Are we, in terms of Europe, doing that? Are we, in terms of United States, doing that? We are thinking only of ourselves. It's important, and I said pragmatism and principle must be balanced. But we are thinking only of ourselves. We are not thinking of anybody else. I think that is a very, very critical factor, and that's where the mistakes in foreign policy are being made.
For your very insightful speech. So for somebody who's just starting their life in politics, I feel that the idea of India is under attack. That is the reason why I applied. So what would be perhaps your advice to somebody who's just starting off? Because I believe at times that I'm paranoid because I get into my own echo chamber. I follow like-minded individuals and I'll read the same kind of content. So I do feel that the idea of India is in danger. But for today, specifically for me, perhaps, and for the cohort, we are starting a new chapter in our lives. So how do you perhaps still go on? Because you have so much vast experience. How can you, perhaps you can draw something from it and give us suggestions?
Well, that is a tough question. It is reaffirmation to begin with of the idea. I think the biggest problem for us has been that those who believe in the idea have begun to doubt the idea, right? That was the problem. If you don't doubt the idea, if you believe in the idea, you can stand up and fight. And if you stand up and fight, you will prevail, you will succeed. And you will succeed because this is not something completely new. This is something for which so many generations that you admire have fought. And if those generations have succeeded, then there is no reason why you won't succeed. I believe that you are today blessed with an opportunity to fight for freedom once again. Your ancestors fought for freedom. And ancestors fought for freedom maybe in different circumstances than sitting here in this beautiful building. But the spirit is the same. The spirit is the same. Fight for that spirit.
Hello, sir. This is Vinita, and thank you for wonderfully communicating to us today. What I learned from you is how to use humor in your speech, and it was beautiful. The question I had was, we often, I mean, we just spoke about it, that we are quite confused in terms of where we stand in the foreign affairs space. And down the line, 4 years, there's an election coming. And I'm hoping that we all will come back to power. And in that such case, where do you think our foreign affairs are going to stand? And what is one of those potential challenges you think we're going to face at that point in time, given what's going on right now?
Yeah, you just have to be back on the drawing board completely, because so much of a mess would have been made. But long before we go back to the drawing board on foreign policy, our friends here who understand economics better would be on the drawing board for economics. I mean, if we get the economics corrected, economics means all the way from the poorest to the richest. When you get that economics right, foreign policy will follow. And certainly foreign policy will follow with people like Trump knowing that somebody else's economics is what they need to respect. And if the economics is not right, they don't need to show any respect. All that will be very easy to bring in if we have fundamentally ensured that our economy gets back on track. And our economy needs to get back on track, which includes social justice just as much as productivity, as aggregates, as GDP, all that. But the basic thing is that the fundamental principles of economy must get back. And I think who better to talk about that, and who better to dedicate themselves to that, but fellows under the name of Dr. Manmohan Singh.
The last two questions.
Good afternoon, sir. This is Dr. Bhavna Rai. I am from Delhi itself. So I have been working in policies and research and advocacy. But the irony of that policy, research and advocacy, I have to advocate the current government. Though I am not willing to do that, though my heart, soul is not acceptable of those particular policies. But how do you see the kind of change in the mindset of the people? They are shrinking. They are not liberal. And the foreign policy, what we are practicing earlier, is not in that midst way. So what is the current exact change in the mindset, and how do we convince the people to have incorporate the ideology of the government, specifically the Congress government, how we practice those ideologies, and what ultimately we achieve? Because there have been a certain shift in the mindset of the people. They are not currently good. As you said, ideology, they are doubting on the ideology. So what best we can do so that they can incline towards the Congress policies and the nurturing the Congress policy?
See, I think there are different levels at which you have to reach out to people, different levels. There's a very significant and important level. It may be small in terms of volumes and numbers, but the segment that you represent here is a very important segment, because it's the segment of opinion makers. Opinion makers who can influence even unseen. The impact is there. And when Congress began to lose ground, it began with the opinion makers, whether you're in the media, newspapers, or you control top businesses, or you control various other methods by which you control opinion, etc. But we lost the opinion makers. And when the buzz of the opinion makers begins, it then emanates into other segments and other sectors, etc. And then, of course, there is the mass base that was very important for us. You're from Delhi, and you know, in Delhi, for whatever reason, this is not the time to go into it, but for whatever reason, our strongholds we lost. We lost the Jhuggi Jhopris of Delhi, and we still haven't recovered all of them. So the Jhuggi Jhopris of Delhi that used to sweep us to power, we lost. We also lost the opinion makers. So we were squeezed at two ends, between a rock and a hard place. We were squeezed between the two ends, which ended up with giving us 0 seats, etc. But that's where we have to handle now. There is one important level and segment that's being handled here, is being handled by people like you. And the other segment and element is going to be obviously handled by the standard political structures that we'll have to put into place, fine-tuning it as has been done and is being doing, which brings in a lot of things like cross representation, making sure that every segment feels that they are important, that people reach out to them and so on. It's the miasma that was created by the emergence of the Aam Aadmi Party in Delhi, which destroyed the work of Sheila Dikshit, right? So all we need to do is to remember what Sheila Dikshit did and the possibilities of what can happen with another Sheila Dikshit, and things will become much better. Thank you.
Nationalism. There's this twin-pronged approach.
Yeah.
I think I'm audible.
Yep.
So this twin-pronged approach that the ruling establishment, and it does feel like an establishment, not a single party, frankly, because the of using Hindutva and nationalism, right? And there are people who may not believe in one, but who believe in the other. And this is how millions and people have been, sidetracked. How does a party that brought freedom to this country, like the Congress, co-opt those who are nationalistic in this country, and at least not even the nationalism that is far-right nationalism, but those who are genuine patriots in this country, who believe in this country, how do we bring them back to the party?
This is a tough area. Frankly, if we were familiar with this and we knew how to do it, you would be sitting in the room of a party that was in power, and so we are working on it. But I just have an idea, and I would request you to reflect on the idea. I'm not sure how often in history the word nationalism has been used very, very productively and in a positive way. Nationalism is always seen as against something. And we were nationalists because we were against the British, so we were nationalists. But when you're on your own, I think it's much better to be considered patriots. That you're patriotic, you are referencing your own people, your own system, your own structures, your own country. Nationalism is vis-a-vis somebody else. So a nation state versus a nation state, and the nationalist support of the nation state, etc. But if you really want to express what the Congress is and was and will be, it's to be patriots. It's to be dedicated entirely. Nobody who gets killed in defense of the country is called a nationalist. He's called a patriot, right? I mean, this is not a final view. Please just think about it. I think it's a far more productive and positive to speak of ourselves as patriots. Nationalism is a good thought, provided it is not malused for purposes for which it shouldn't be used. Nationalism vis-a-vis another nation is understandable. So now, in a sense, when Bangladesh was born, there was a spirit of nationalism in Bangladesh, because that was against the oppression of Pakistani armed forces, etc. And we supported the Bangladesh nationalism. But for Bangladesh to continue speaking about nationalism today makes no sense, because now they have an internal problem, two people, two sets of parties, political parties, but they can all together be patriots. They can all be true and loyal to Bangladesh, in which case they can be patriots. But this is just a thought. This is an unfinished thought. I just want you to reflect on it, and maybe you can talk amongst yourselves and find some answers.
Thank you, sir.
So is it over, or there's a gentleman here who...
Okay, yes. No, please.
No, you
You
might as well
please
ask
go
now.
ahead. Please go ahead. Manu, go ahead.
Oxford-educated person and working as a politician in UP in Farrukhabad and handling as in with the masses of UP. So these are two worlds that you started. How did you handle it?
You know something called unlearning?
Yes.
You have to unlearn a lot of things that you've learned in the past. And the process of unlearning is also a process of learning something fresh. Okay, thank you very much. I thoroughly enjoyed this. You've now got you've now got double trouble. You've got two speakers back now, and both brilliant and will go far beyond what I was able to contribute to your understanding of what we are doing here. Thank you very much. Good luck and all the best here.